There were no cries, no screams, no pain. Only light, warm, golden, and pulsing like a heartbeat. Inside the soul chamber, while Jack Teller stood with Princess Selthari watching the glowing pods slowly open. The energy faded, and inside, floating, in soft blue mist, was a tiny child with deep purple skin, human-shaped eyes, and small glowing lines along his arms. A perfect mix of earth and Virelia. "Their child, he is beautiful," whispered Zelthari. Jack felt his knees go weak. "He has your strength," she smiled, "and your spirit." The baby floated gently into Zell's arms, blinking up at them with wide, curious eyes. The heir of two worlds had arrived. The announcement shook the galaxy. A child born of human and Virelian blood. Some called it a miracle, others called it a mistake. News feeds everywhere debated the meaning of it. Will this change the future of the Empire? Is Earth ready for a place in the royal line? Could this heir unite or divide the galaxy? But while the people talked, others moved in secret. In the dark corners of space, an ancient faction stirred the pure flame. They believed Virelia should remain pure, only Virelian blood. No mixing, no change. And now they had a target back. On Virelia, Jack had taken to parenting like a soldier to a mission. He wore the baby sling. He learned lullabies in 3 languages, even built a mobile out of old spare parts, each piece shaped like a starship. The baby, whom they named Rian, was quiet, calm, and unusually aware. At just a few weeks old, his eyes followed movement. With sharp focus, his skin glowed brighter when Jack held him. "His energy is stronger than expected," said the palace healers. "He may develop abilities from both species." Jack just wanted to keep him safe, but trouble was already on the way. One night, while the royal family slept, a palace alarm blared. Red lights flashed. Security bots rushed the halls. Vox 17's voice came through Jack's cum. "Unauthorized ships have landed near the outer gardens. Breach confirmed. Assassins inside." Jack jumped out of bed. He grabbed the small protective pod that held baby Rian and activated the shield. "Stay close," he told XL. The door exploded. 3 masked figures in black armor rushed in, moving like shadows. Their weapons crackled with dark red energy. Zell blocked one with a shield pulse. But 2 others charged Jack. Jack didn't think. He moved. He dodged one blade, kicked over a table, then triggered his old trigger, personal jammer. The lights flickered. The assassins paused, confused. Jack tackled the one closest to Rian's pod. They rolled across the floor, fighting for the weapon. Zell sent a sonic blast that knocked the second attacker into the wall. The third turned, aimed at the baby. No. Jack threw himself forward, blocking the blast with his own body. He felt the heat. The pain, then dashed silence. The assassin fell. A palace guard had entered just in time. Jack lay still, blood on the floor. Jack woke up in the healing chamber, his chest bandaged and aching. Zell was beside him, holding his hand tightly. "You almost died," she said, voice low. He tried to smile. "But the baby's safe, right?" She nodded. "They came for him," Jack said. "They wanted to erase the future." Zell's jaw tightened. "Then we must show them it cannot be erased." The next day, the Emperor called a special gathering broadcast across systems. Jack stood beside Zell, holding baby Rian in his arms. His chest still hurt, but he stood tall. "We will not hide," said the Emperor. "We will not fear." He gestured toward Jack. This human came from a distant world. He had no power, no army, only a handshake and a promise. That promise saved us more than once. He turned to the crowd. Now his son, our heir, will carry both bloods forward. Jack stepped up. "I didn't plan any of this," he said. "Honestly, I'm just a guy who wanted to fix machines." He looked at Rian, but sometimes the smallest spark can light the stars. Days later, the Emperor made a shocking decision. He announced that Earth would be offered a seat in the Galactic Council. The first time a young planet had ever been included so early. "This is not a gift," the Emperor said. "It is recognition of a people who brought us new vision. It's a man who reminded us what courage looks like." Jack watched from the palace balcony, stunned. He had started this journey as a lost technician. Now Earth had a voice in the stars because of him. Back in the nursery, Jack sat with Rion in his lap, watching the baby giggle at a floating toy. Zell joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. "He will be watched his whole life," she said. "Then we'll watch with him," Jack replied. "He may change everything." Jack kissed the top of Rion's head. "Then we raise him to change it for the better." That night, as the stars glowed outside and the city fell quiet, Jack thought about everything. One handshake had started all of this, a simple gesture. Now he had a home, a partner, a son. He didn't understand every law, every custom, or every alien feast dish, but he understood this. Sometimes the universe doesn't choose kings. It chooses the one person who shows up, shows heart, and keeps going even when it hurts. Jack Teller had done that, and now he was ready for whatever came next. Jack Teller had officially done it. He passed all the trials. He was no longer just a human mechanic lost in space. He was now royal consort of Princess Zelthari, bonded by law, ceremony, and a glowing ring that made his finger tingle at night. Even weirder, he was now being trained to father the future heirs of an alien empire. He didn't even have a pet back home. Jack sat in a royal garden full of floating plants and whispering vines, nervously flipping through a book titled Raising Noble Offspring. Across Species, a Beginner's Guide. It says here I'll be expected to teach the heirs courage, honor, and Varelian history, he muttered, eyebrows raised. I barely passed Earth history. Vox 17, his ever-polite floating assistant, hovered nearby. You must not worry, Consort Jack. Education is shared among many minds here. You provide balance, perspective, warmth. Jack looked up. You mean I provide the weird human dad? Energy. Correct, said Vox. Princess Zelthari entered the garden a moment later, wearing ceremonial robes of deep blue and silver. There you are, she said calmly. The Imperial Council has summoned us. Jack blinked. Why? She handed him a scroll. He read the message out loud. By royal decree and under treaty law, the first steps toward securing the next generation shall begin. The princess and the consort will enter the chamber of soul binding. He choked slightly. Wait, what now? Zell raised an eyebrow. The Varelian process of conception is not physical. It is spiritual. Genetic blending is done by the chamber's energy. Pure, painless, and guided by intention. You mean I don't even need to do anything? She smirked, disappointed. He laughed nervously. Honestly, relieved. The chamber of soul binding was deep within the palace, guarded by silent warriors and glowing runes. It wasn't romantic. It was sacred. Inside the chamber pulsed with soft light. At the center floated 2 orbs, 1 gold. Jack was told to place a drop of blood into the red orb. Zell placed her hand over the gold one. The room dimmed. The orbs floated together, spinning faster and faster. A beam of white light shot into the air, then disappeared. Silence, then a soft hum like a heartbeat. It is done, said the chamber keeper. The process has begun. Jack exhaled. So, now what? Now we wait, Zell replied, and we prepare. The next few weeks were the strangest of Jack's life. He wasn't just a consort anymore. The Emperor officially granted him the title of co-guardian of the heirs, which meant he had a voice in royal decisions about their upbringing, education, and even planetary diplomacy. In simpler terms, Jack had become a galactic version of a stay-at-home dad with space. Politics homework, royal advisors bombarded him with lessons. This is how you address a planetary ambassador. This is the correct fork to use at a solar feast. Never offer someone a left-handed crystal during tea. It signals war. Jack kept notes. A lot of them. Still, there were good moments. He and Zell began spending more time together, not just in meetings, but in private. Walks in the gravity gardens, long talks under the twin moons. Even laughter over how badly he failed the tea ceremony. They weren't just bonded by politics anymore. They were slowly becoming something real. Then the message came. An enemy fleet was approaching. At Aurelian borders, a rogue warlord named Merak the Red, exiled decades ago, had returned in. He wasn't alone. "We estimate 20 ships," said the Imperial strategist during the emergency meeting. "Their weapons are old, but powerful. They may target the capital." Jack sat beside Zell at the war table. She was calm, but her eyes burned with quiet fire. "What does he want?" Jack asked. "Chaos," said the Emperor. "Oh, and revenge." He always hated that Zell was chosen as heir. Jack felt cold, so this is personal. The Emperor nodded. "He believes Zell's bond to a human makes her weak." Jack clenched his fists. "I'll show him how weak humans are." Jack wasn't a warrior, but he knew tech. He worked with palace engineers to upgrade the city's shield grid, designed a low-frequency jamming field to confuse Merak's old targeting systems. He even trained the palace guard in guerrilla tactics he learned from watching old Earth war documentaries. When the fleet arrived, Varelia was ready. The sky turned red with energy fire. Sirens blared. Crystal towers shook. Jack was in the command center beside Zell. "Shields holding at 72%, she said. "Jamming field active," Jack confirmed. On screen, several of Merak's ships began to drift off course. "Targeting the lead ship," said the royal gunner. Jack leaned forward. "Hit it now." A blast of crystal energy flew across the sky and struck true. The ship exploded in a ball of blue flame. The others hesitated. A few open channels of surrender. Merak's voice came through a final transmission, low. Angry, defeated. "You've made your point, little human." Jack stared into the screen. "You mess with my family again, and I'll make it louder." Next time, the signal cut. The battle was over. Celebrations filled the city. Fireworks painted the sky. His food carts gave away floating snacks. Children sang songs of the human who held the sky. Jack didn't care about the attention. He stood beside Zell on the balcony, watching the stars. "You saved my people," she said quietly. "I helped," Jack replied. "You saved yourself long before I got here." She looked at him, eyes soft. "I chose you because of a handshake. But I stay with you now because you are brave, honest, and kind." He smiled. "I guess we're really doing this, huh?" She touched his arm. "Our child will be born. A child of two worlds. A symbol of peace and love." Jack blinked. Wow. No pressure. She smirked. A month later, the palace doctors called them to the soul chamber. "The seed has taken form," they said. "The child will grow in an energy cocoon for one Varelian cycle." Jack stood beside the glowing pod and saw it a small spark of life. Floating in a protective shield of light, it was barely bigger than his thumb, but it was real, and it was his. He didn't cry. Not really. Okay. Maybe a little. That night, Jack sat by the window. Holding his old Earth datapad, he opened a message to his old mechanic crew. "Hey guys, it's crazy update time. A royal consort now. Also about to be a dad to an alien baby. Yeah, it's been a weird year, but for the first time, I feel like I belong." Jack Teller never expected that falling in love with an alien princess would involve dueling for his life. He didn't even know how to duel. He barely knew how to throw a proper punch. But here he was, standing in front of a crowd of glowing aliens, wearing armor that hummed with energy, and holding a long staff made of Varelian crystal that vibrated with power. This was Zelmer, the arena of honor, where Varelia's royal consorts proved their worth. Jack had been voluntold. 3 days earlier, Jack had accepted the bond with Princess Zelthari in front of the entire royal court. It was the only way to stop a full diplomatic disaster between Earth and the Varelian Empire. He meant what he said. He respected her. He liked her. He even admired her. But no one had warned him that the next step in the process involved trials. Real ones, with weapons against trained warriors. Apparently every Varelian consort had to prove they were worthy in body, mind, and spirit. Usually Varelian nobles trained their whole lives for these tests, Jack. He once got winded climbing 3 flights of stairs. His first opponent was a four-armed Varelian named Senra, the commander of the Emperor's Guard. She was 10 feet tall and built like a starship engine. Her muscles had muscles. When she smiled, her teeth shimmered like diamonds and promised pain. "This is tradition," she said politely. "Try not to die." "Thanks," Jack muttered. The crowd cheered as the bell rang. Jack spun his staff once, trying to look like he knew what he was doing. It slipped from his hands and hit the floor. Laughter echoed through the arena. Senra raised her weapon. Jack did the only thing he could think of. He ran. He dashed across the arena, dodging blasts of energy and powerful strikes. He wasn't fast, but he was slippery. Senra kept swinging and missing as Jack ducked, rolled, and hid behind a glowing pillar. The crowd was booing now. Jack peeked out, panting. "Okay, think. How do you win a fight you can't win?"
Ow.
Then he remembered. Something Varelians value cleverness, spirit, strategy. He didn't have strength, but he had brains. He looked up. Floating above the arena was a Varelian banner hanging from a small drone. Jack grinned. He grabbed his staff, charged forward, then leapt onto a stone ledge and launched himself at the drone. The crowd gasped. Jack caught the banner and yanked it down, wrapping it around his staff. When Senra rushed him again, he dodged and planted the staff like a flag into the ground. Then he saluted. I surrendered creatively. Silence, then laughter. The princess stood and clapped. Senra paused, tilted her head, and gave a slow nod. "You didn't win. You didn't lose with shame." Clever. The judges rang the victory bell. Jack collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. 1 duel down. 3 to go. Back in his quarters, Jack soaked in a glowing blue bath that healed bruises and tasted like strawberries. He groaned as the energy pulses massaged his aching muscles. Princess Zelthar visited him that evening. "You survived," she said calmly, sitting near the edge of the bath. "Barely," Jack groaned. "Does every future royal consort go through this?" She nodded. "Yes, but most train for years. You are different." Jack smirked. "Thanks. I think," she studied him, "used your weaknesses as strengths. That is rare." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Is that a compliment or a warning?" She smiled slightly. "Both." The second trial was the trial of mind. This one Jack was more confident about. He was led into a chamber filled with floating puzzles, glowing shapes, and alien mathematical patterns. The goal was to solve as many as possible before time ran out. A holographic judge hovered near him. "Begin." Jack cracked his knuckles. All right, time to shine. He didn't know Varelian math, but he did know logic. He followed the patterns, watched how the puzzles reacted to movement, and treated each test like a machine needing repair. He solved the first 3 in minutes. Then something strange happened. The puzzles started changing shape based on his thoughts. They were reading his brain. Jack's heart raced. The room responded to his fears. Suddenly the puzzles turned into familiar shapes. The broken food dispenser from his station job, the engine failure that nearly killed his crew.
The face of his younger brother who had died in a mining accident.
Emotional? "Resistance test activated," said the judge. "Proceed." Jack froze. This wasn't just logic. It was about control. Pain, loss, regret. The memories shook him. He sank to his knees, gripping his head. But then he remembered Zelthari, her words, her calm strength. "You already have changed things." He took a deep breath, looked up, and focused. He let the memories pass like broken pieces floating. Down a river, the puzzles calmed. He reached out and placed the final piece. The room lit up. Trial of mind passed. Jack was allowed a full day to rest. Vox 17 floated. Near him during dinner, "You are progressing well," the bot said. "Only the trial of spirit remains." Jack raised a fork. "Let me guess, more running." "No," said Vox. "The trial of spirit is not about speed. It is about sacrifice." Jack frowned. "What does that mean?" But Vox 17 said no more. Next morning, Jack was taken to a quiet crystal temple. The princess was already waiting. She looked more serious than ever. "This test is not public," she said softly. "No audience, no judge. Just you and the question." Jack looked around. "What question?" She pointed to a pedestal. On it rested a small glowing cube. "Inside is your escape," she said. "A device that can cancel the bond. Wipe all memory of you from Varelia. You can walk away pain-free. No shame, no war, no heirs, no future." Jack stared at the cube. "It's your choice," she said. "No one will know, except me." Jack stepped forward slowly. The cube pulsed softly. The temptation was strong. He could leave, return to Earth. No. More tests, no more pressure, no more alien politics. But also, no more Zell. He thought about her, how she had looked at him with curiosity, not judgment. How she had shared her world, her thoughts, her strength. How she had offered him something no one else ever had, a place where he mattered. Jack reached for the cube and turned it off. He looked at her. "I'm not walking away," he said. "Not from this, not from you." The temple glowed softly. The trial was passed. That evening there was a celebration in the palace. The bond had now been proven in body, mind, and spirit. The royal court cheered. The emperor gave a short nod of approval, and Princess Zelthari approached Jack with something in her hand, a crystal ring, for the first time in Varelian history. She said, loud enough for all to hear, "We honor a human as part of the royal line." Jack looked stunned. Exiel held out the ring. "Jack, tell her," she said, "will you walk with me not just by law, but by choice?" He looked at the crowd at her and smiled. "Yeah," he said, "let's walk together." The ring glowed as he placed it on his hand. Jack Teller had been on the Varelian homeworld for 3 days now. He still couldn't believe this was real. Just a few days ago, he was fixing a busted translator on Nemeraxis. Now he was staying in a glowing crystal palace, wearing royal robes that itched like crazy and trying to figure out how not to offend an alien culture with his every move. He had also become, somehow, the future father of alien heirs. No pressure. Jack walked down one of the palace's long glass corridors. The walls sparkled with soft light, and small floating creatures buzzed quietly near the ceiling. Each step made the floor light up. He tried not to step too fast. Last time he did, the floor activated a music mode, and royal guards thought he was summoning a parade. He sighed. "I miss carpet." His guide today was a Varelian historian bot named Fox 17. It looked like a floating crystal cube with blinking lights and a polite voice. "Consort candidate Jack," Fox 17 said, hovering beside him.
Out.
"Today you are scheduled to learn Varelian table manners, air bond expectations, and appropriate public affection levels." Jack stopped. "Hold on. Public what levels?" "Public affection," VOC 17 replied. "As future consort, you must understand Varelian relationship customs." Jack groaned. "Look, Vox, I still haven't agreed to any of this." The bot blinked. "But you performed the ritual of choosing. You touched the princess. At full view with witnesses. Tradition has spoken." Jack rolled his eyes. "Yeah, I touched her. I didn't say I'd date her." Fox 17 considered this. "And you must learn quickly. The royal heir has already shown interest. Your genetics are compatible. Union is expected." Jack stopped walking. "Wait, we're genetically compatible? How?" The bot rotated slowly. "Long ago, many species in the galaxy were seeded by the same ancient ancestors. The Varelians call them the architects. Humans and Varelians share over 93% genetic structure." Jack blinked. "So, aliens might have made humans?" "Possibly," Fox 17 replied, "or humans are just lucky." Later, Jack was brought to the palace gardens. Huge trees with glass leaves waved in the wind. Air smelled like mint and electricity. Princess Elthari waited for him there. Standing next to a stone table with glowing fruits and floating cups, she smiled slightly when he arrived. "You're late. I had a class on." "Public affection," Jack muttered. "Did you pass?" she asked, tilting her head. I don't think it was graded, Jack said. The princess laughed softly, a sound like crystal wind chimes. Good. You will need humor. The court will test you. Jack sat across from her. Look, Zell, can I call you that? You already did, she replied. Right. Well, this whole bond thing. I didn't mean to cause trouble. You didn't, she said. You changed things that is different. She handed him a piece of fruit. It floated gently into his hands. Jack took a bite. It tasted like cinnamon and lemon soda. I read more about Earth last night, she said. You have no noble blood. You were raised by machines and people who worked with their hands. Yeah, I fixed machines to survive, Jack replied. Never thought I'd end up at a royal dinner. And yet here you are, she said. Tell me something honest, Jack. What do you think of my people? Jack looked at her carefully. Honestly, you're strong, proud, smart, but you take things way too seriously. A handshake shouldn't decide someone's life, Stealthery. Didn't seem offended? That is fair, she said, but we believe in meaning. Everything must mean something. Handshake is not just a hello, it is a bond. Jack looked down. And what if I'm not ready for that bond? She looked at him calmly. Then you must become ready, or walk away and carry the dishonor of breaking it. Jack stood up. Dishonor or not, I didn't choose this. She stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Then choose now, not because of tradition, but because of me. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He sat in his giant crystal bed, staring. At the stars through the open ceiling, Varelia was beautiful, but it wasn't home. The pressure was huge. He was just a guy with a toolbox. Now, he was expected to be the mate of an alien princess. Earth's representatives finally managed to contact him directly. Jack, we're trying to handle this, said Captain Myra Vasquez from Earth's Space Council. But the Varelians won't back down. If you break the bond, they'll cut. All communication. We'll lose the treaty. Jack laughed bitterly. So I'm a pawn? You're a bridge, Mira said. Between two worlds. What if I don't want to be a bridge and walk away, she said. We'll handle the fallout, but if you think there's something real here, even a chance, then maybe it's worth walking forward. The next morning, things got worse. A message flashed across every Varelian screen. Jack Teller, human consort candidate, has declined the bond. What? Jack shouted. He ran into the hall. Guards blocked his path. No one is allowed to speak to the princess. One said, I didn't decline anything, Jack yelled, but the damage was done. The Emperor sent a short message. The Union is suspended. All Earth negotiations are frozen. Jack stormed back to Vox 17. What happened? Someone from the human embassy sent a message without your approval, the bot replied. They believed it was in your best interest. Jack clenched his fists. So now, I'm the guy who insulted an entire empire. Correct, said Vox. Most Varelians are deeply offended. Jack looked up at the giant sky dome above the palace. He thought about the princess's calm eyes, about her laughter, about the fact that for the first time, someone had looked at him like he was more than just a tech guy in the background. He made his decision. The great assembly chamber of Varelia was filled with hundreds of alien nobles. Shimmering armor, crystal robes, glowing staffs. And in the center, standing tall and quiet, was Princess Stealthery. She didn't look angry. She looked ... hurt. Jack stepped into the center. All eyes turned toward him. The Emperor sat above. Watching, he said nothing. Jack took a deep breath. I never said I didn't want the bond, Jack said loudly. I was confused, scared, overwhelmed. Whispers ran through the crowd. I didn't grow up with royal rules. I don't have bloodline training. But I know what honor is. And I know when someone deserves respect. He looked at the princess. I didn't choose the bond that day. But maybe the bond chose me. Silence. Then the princess stepped forward. Do you accept the path ahead? Jack looked around, took a deep breath, and nodded. I do, one step at a time. The room lit up. The Emperor stood. "The bond is restored," he declared. "Let the trials of honor begin." Jack blinked. "Wait, what trials?" Zelthari smiled faintly. "Oh yes. You didn't think the union would come without challenge, did you?" "What kind of challenges?" Jack asked. "Honor duels?" She replied, "Duels. As in fighting." She nodded. "To prove your worth." Jack rubbed his forehead. "I really should have just stayed home." Jack Teller was not a diplomat. He wasn't even supposed to be part of the delegation. He was just a mechanican engineer from New Houston Station who worked with cables, broken systems, and fried circuits. But here he was, standing in the middle of the Great Hall of Nemeraxis, facing an alien princess who sparkled like crystal and looked like she could crush a car with her bare hands. It had started as a normal day. Jack was sent to help the Earth diplomatic team with the translation systems at the Intergalactic Peace Summit. The summit was being held on Nemeraxis, a neutral planet where dozens of alien species gathered to discuss trade, peace, and alliances. Real ambassador from Earth, Ambassador Haynes, had caught a space flu the night before. While the doctors worked on curing him, someone had to keep Earth's seat warm. So they picked Jack. He was already on site, wearing the only clean suit. He owned and had enough technical knowledge to bluff through introductions. "Just don't touch anything. Don't say anything weird. Smile, nod, be polite," his boss told him over the comm. Jack nodded. Easy enough. He had read the basics about Varelians: crystal-skinned, four-armed, tall, very formal. He'd even memorized. A few greetings, no problem. Then she walked in. Princess Zelthari of the Varelian Empire was nearly 7 feet tall, with sharp but elegant features. Her skin shimmered like amethyst glass, and her eyes glowed faintly blue. She was wearing armor made of something that looked like starlight and metal. Every step she took echoed in the hall. Jack's translator earpiece whispered, "Royalty approaching." Custom bowed deeply. "Do not show teeth. Do not initiate contact." But Jack was nervous. He had never met royalty before. So when the princess stopped in front of him and extended her hand knot in a Varelian gesture, but in a way that looked familiar, Jack panicked, and he shook her hand. Firm grip. One solid pump, just like back home. The room fell silent. The translator exploded in his ear with static. The Varelian guards raised their weapons. One alien diplomat gasped so loudly that their face mask fogged up. Jack blinked. "Did I do something wrong?" Princess Zelthari stared at him with wide eyes. Then she turned slightly and said something in her own language. Her voice was like music made of glass. Without warning, a hologram appeared above the room. It was the Emperor of Varalia, her father. He was a towering figure with 12 ceremonial arms and a glowing crown that floated above his head. The Emperor looked directly at Jack. "Human Jack Teller," the translator said, "now reconnected through another channel. You have performed the ritual of choosing. You have touched the air with open palm and honest grip. This is sacred law." Jack's mouth went dry. "Wait, what?" "Ritual." I just shook her hand. The Emperor ignored him. "As is our tradition, you are now bound to the royal line. You shall father the heirs of Varelia. Prepare for union." Jack stared. What? The chaos that followed was beyond anything Jack had ever seen. Earth's backup diplomats arrived in a panic. Now, trying to explain it was a cultural misunderstanding. The Varelian officials, however, were serious. To them, a handshake wasn't casual. It was the most sacred gesture of trust and commitment. It meant total acceptance, spiritual, emotional, and physical. "No one touches royalty," one of the Varelian advisors explained later, while Jack sat on a fancy couch in the palace, except the chosen one. "But I didn't know," Jack argued. "Intent is meaningless before tradition," the advisor replied calmly. A team of human lawyers tried to negotiate. The Varelians allowed them to speak, but refused to change their minds. The princess accepted the touch. The Emperor confirmed it. The pact is sealed. Meanwhile, Princess Zelthari herself seemed curious. She visited Jack in his new royal. guest room twice the size of his apartment back on Earth. She didn't say much the first time. Just studied him, walked around him, and finally asked, "Why did you grip so firmly? Were you challenging me?" Jack sighed. "No, that's just how humans say hello. A firm handshake shows confidence." "Confidence," repeated the word slowly, as if tasting it. She didn't seem angry. In fact, she smiled. "You were strange," she said. "But you did not flinch. You did not hesitate. Varelians respect such boldness." Jack rubbed his temples. "This is insane. I'm not royal. I'm not some chosen hero. I fix machines, clean out air filters. I once spent 3 hours unclogging a food dispenser." "Then you are not prideful." "That is also admirable," she replied, and she left. Later that evening, Jack found himself at a formal banquet, seated next to a Varelian high priest who kept blessing his water. Across from him sat the princess, dressed in ceremonial robes and wearing a small silver band on her wrist, the same kind now resting on his own. A bond band, a symbol of the pre-union. Earth Command was still trying to extract him, but every attempt only made things worse. The Varelians believed removing the bond would curse both sides with dishonor. Jack stared at his plate of glowing blue noodles inside. "I just shook her hand," he muttered. The priest nodded solemnly. So begins many great journeys. Back in his room, Jack tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. His mind was racing. What would happen next? Was he really expected to marry an alien princess? Raise royal heirs, rule an empire? He wasn't ready for that. He didn't even water his plants regularly. A knock came at his door. It was Princess Elthari again. Stood calmly, her arms behind her back. "I read about your people today," she said. "Your world has no caste, no emperor. You speak your mind freely. Even your workers are treated with dignity." Jack nodded, unsure where this was going. "You come from chaos," she said thoughtfully, "but maybe that is what Varelia needs." He frowned. "I'm not trying to change your world, but you already have," she replied. And for the first time, Jack realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Not a mistake. Turning point.